This does not include service members on deployment. I know that we have several NU if military students that are deployed in the Middle East and in conflict areas throughout the world. These are just going to be people that are stationed in these places or they live there. Feel free to ask any questions you have as they come up. You see, I might not be able to track of the chat very well, so feel free to just turn on your mic and shoot your question.
Thomas, I can monitor that chat for you. This is Cece.
Oh, thank you so much, Cece. Well, there we go. You can turn on your mic or you can throw it in the chat. So here is kind of the mission statement for this project. I'll just read this aloud and you can follow along if you would like. Military members are almost always forced to relocate by their branch of service. Separation from service and going back to school is a challenging transition on its own. Housing insecurity can make this time of transition even more stressful for veteran students. The City of Flagstaff Housing Section, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and various non-governmental organizations are attempting to provide solutions through financial assistance for qualified applicants. Through extensive communication with veteran students, our department has determined that many are unaware of the resources available to them. The difficulties of finding available housing are exaggerated when the term begins. Students often have a heavy academic workload and many need to work in order to support themselves and their families financially. So this was written just based off of research through the local organizations that provide housing resources for veterans and for just anybody in general. The first paragraph touches on how unique the situation is for service members separating from service because they have to move around when they're active duty almost always. Someone could get really lucky and say, for instance, if they have a job and it's only in one, they know it's only on one base in that branch and they live nearby and they can kind of plan it out to where they could maybe like live in the same area that they're from. But almost always they're forced to relocate. So that's either moving into base housing or off base housing. And basically that's determined by their duty station. So just wherever they get orders, they have to go. Touch on that a little more before I get into this slide. When people get out of the military, they'll often have to move, and get out is based off of your contract. You don't really get to adjust it. There are a few programs that you can apply for to try to get out a little early to go back to school. But for the most part, they're just getting out at a random time of the year. And so they'll need to move when they get out. And then oftentimes they'll need to move again within a year or maybe even 6 months or so to get to NAU if they want to attend in person. 58% of Flagstaff residents stated that they were either nearly certain to somewhat likely going to relocate due to housing costs. The city of Flagstaff declared a housing emergency in December of 2020 and stated that the resolution of this crisis should be a top priority for the community. These statements are coming from the City of Flagstaff Housing Authority's website, where they have their emergency housing declaration listed, as well as their 10-year housing plan. So as I touched on before, service members in on-base housing, they must move when separating from service. If you're in off-base housing, sometimes you can stay, depending, like if you're stationed overseas, it would be difficult to stay because then you'd have to work out your whole civilian visa situation and everything. And then within the US, you could possibly just stay where you're at if you can find a job there and pay for that. But the military, they offer housing, and they offer housing stipends based off of zip code. So it may be more difficult to pay that rent once you're out of active duty. Separation dates do not align with the beginning of any terms, which may force multiple moves in a short time span. Yeah, I touched on that a few times already. Let's move on. The lack of affordable housing options has created major challenges for Northern Arizona University's incoming veteran students. This is something that I have seen on more of a day-to-day basis around the beginning of the terms, especially the fall term, but the spring term as well. A lot of veterans, they move here and they don't really have a support system like some other students might have. They often don't know anybody or have family in the area. And so it can be kind of difficult for them, especially when they're not aware of the high demand for housing in Flagstaff, and they come here and they're just totally blindsided by not being able to find a place to live, which is understandable, I think. But one of our goals in this project is to get to them sooner so we can all be on the same page and they can be aware of the situation and the resources available to them before they get here. And housing resources are available, but students are often not aware of them. Yeah, like I just touched on, a lot of times students get here and we'll start working with them and addressing their situation and looking up all the resources that they might qualify for and relaying that information to them. But a lot of times it's kind of too late to really take advantage of some of those programs. A lot of the programs you have to apply for and wait at least several weeks to hear back from. And especially if it's getting close to the beginning of the term, the student often is kind of stressed about starting back at school in general, trying to figure out how all their classes work, how, BB Learn works and Louis works and different things like that. So a lot of times there's just not enough time left. Additional challenges. Property managers often demand that the students prove an income that's unrealistic for their situation. For instance, and like I think some of the local apartments on campus were bought out by a new property management company, and they increased the income requirement for that. And so this latest fall, we had especially a lot of students complaining about that. We write up and sign income letters, income verification letters for the GI Bill housing stipend that they're going to receive. But even that is sometimes, it's not enough because they need to prove a whole income. And this is just proving the money that would be specifically for housing. As I touched on before, late contact with students in need of assistance can be an issue, just does not leave enough time. The prevalence of vacation homes and short-term rentals contribute to inaccessible rent prices. This might be more on my mind just because I see it all the time in my neighborhood. I live in Kachina Village, and there's a ton of empty houses that I see every day. And then I go to work and hear about people not being able to find places to live. And so it, yeah, it's one challenge that we face in Flagstaff right now, which is the limited supply that we have due to building regulations for different reasons. Yeah, and there's just a general lack of options that fit the budget of veteran students, which is not terrible because the GI Bill is really good. They cover the post 9/11 GI Bill at 100% will cover all tuition and fees for a 4-year degree, as well as provide a housing stipend for the student. And then a lot of these students are also working part-time. But it's just hard times in Flagstaff right now. And even though they're working hard and trying, they're running into issues. And yes, the GI Bill is great, but it does pay out kind of late. It pays out after the student is already attending classes. So at the end of the month or the beginning of the next month, it'll pay for the previous month, but that's obviously way too late to be used for an initial housing payment and deposit. So here is a heat map that I made of the distribution of student veterans throughout Flagstaff. NAU student veterans, that is. This does not include CCC or anything like that. Here's that same map with the Flagstaff bikeways included. And so you can see down in the lower right-hand corner, the legend, which shows what kind of bike lane there is, if there is a bike lane, or if you have to just drive on the shoulder, if you have to drive on the road, or if you should not be biking there whatsoever. And this is a tool that we're using we use this to try to locate areas where we could potentially put veterans seeking housing by comparing this with the currently available listings. And then say, for instance, this would be best, like say a veteran student doesn't have a car, but they need to find a place to live. Say on-campus housing is full, or they just don't want to live on campus and deal with that situation. We can show them, hey, you can live here and there's a clear, pretty safe bike path to and from the school. And we can I basically work with students on an individual level to customize things for the needs of that particular student. So some of the current resources available, as I said before, there are a good amount of resources. The challenge is just connecting the resources to the people who really need them. So one great resource is the City of Flagstaff Housing Authority. I will go more deep into their resources a little bit later in this presentation. For now, I'm just going to kind of go over all the entities that are providing these resources. Next is NAU Family Housing. They have specialized housing for families. Coconino County Community Services, Department of Economic Service or Security, Catholic Charities Community Services, Flagstaff Shelter Services, Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona and Sharon Manor, Nation's Finest Flagstaff Branch, Be Connected AZ, and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. So Be Connected AZ is more of, they're more of a organization that connects people to the appropriate resources, kind of like we try to do. So I just wanted to specify that one's a little different. That is a good place to recommend students. They seem to be very helpful. We interact with them all the time and network with them. They're presenting in this conference as well, I believe, maybe even right now. So I'm just going to walk you through how you can currently access this information through our website, which the URL is right there in the middle of the screen. You can also just type in neu.edu/VETS if you ever wanted to go there. But as you can see, you just go to the top left. You do need to hover over this drop-down menu, getting started at NEU, and go down to housing options. Say if you wanted to select on-campus housing, it would bring you to this page. So you can see on the right side of the page, or you can see it brings you to the campus living homepage. And it has a few options on the right side of the page. One of them says housing resources, but after going in there, it's essentially just some articles on living on your own and things like that. So it wasn't really helpful for our purposes, but if you go to how to apply for housing, you get some really good information. So you can see here marked by the arrows that the situation is kind of difficult if you're looking to live on campus next year. Applications already closed for some housing. You can see at the first arrow that NEU is experiencing high demand for on-campus housing. The second arrow, that upper division housing will be full. The third arrow, housing for CCC to NEU students, is full. And those applications were closed on March 22nd and March 20th, respectively. So for instance, if I'm understanding this correctly, any returning students, it's already too late to live on campus the next school year, unless they go through one of the non-NEU housing entities that are on campus. This is where you go if you select off-campus housing on that previous page. Sorry, I think I got that a little out of order, but okay. So back to the neu.edu/vets homepage. That's the homepage for veteran military services. If you go to the resources drop-down menu, select VSC resources and services at the arrow. Bring you to this page. Under student life, you can select housing. And then under housing, it has a lot of these resources listed. And then these drop downs are it just has a one sentence line on the organization and then a link to their website. So the bright side, as you can see, there are many resources available to veteran students at NAU. Another good thing is the Department of Veteran Military Services is networking with local governmental and non-governmental agencies that provide housing resources to students. For instance, already mentioned, we network with Be Connected and some other organizations like that, but also we do bring in, like, I think this spring term veteran orientation, we brought in at least 3 people from the VA who worked in different capacities. Say one, for instance, could help veterans apply for healthcare. The other one could help veterans find jobs. And The other one can help veterans with vocational and housing services, for instance. And so we are actively interacting with the VA and bringing in VA personnel whenever possible so that students can get direct contact with the VA and not have to have us try to be a middleman. Adjustments to the workflow of incoming veteran students can ensure that they are aware of these resources. What I mean by that is that all we need to do is make them aware of these resources at an earlier time, make them aware of the situation in Flagstaff at an earlier time. And I think that will solve a good amount of these issues. And I say that just from the experience of working with veterans for several years and seeing that if they, if they're aware of things ahead of time, they'll plan ahead. But a lot of times coming back to school is such a foreign and kind of overwhelming thing because it's just so different trying to get used to all the websites and logins and security and whatever else. Just it's a drastic change for sure. And so if people are trying to deal with that at the same time that they're trying to find housing, it's not a good situation to be in for anybody. And for the most part, it seems like they are somewhat inhibited by the amount of stress that they're experiencing in those situations. So on the same point, early outreach will provide housing information to students over 60 days before the beginning of the term. Veteran and Military Services housing resource page will be consolidated, updated, and publicized. So that would still be a work in progress. We just need to get that information in a more available area. I feel like on the website, that's why I had the walkthrough, because I feel like you have to do a little bit of digging on the website to find them. And honestly, I didn't see those pages until I started researching housing resources specifically. Connecting incoming students in search of housing will allow for veterans to coordinate with potential roommates. So the plan right now, we implemented this a little bit at the beginning of this term through like just a whiteboard where people could write their email if they need a roommate. But that we didn't get like a lot of participation in that. So we're looking into maybe something like some sort of messaging app like a Discord or something like that, where incoming students can connect before they get here and ask each other questions, get to know each other a little bit, and maybe room together or whatever they want to do. This is an informational flyer from the City of Flagstaff Housing Authority. It just summarizes some of the available resources. You can see towards the middle, you can see Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing in yellow. So that's just case management services provided to veterans who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And you can get a referral for a housing voucher. There are other programs available to the general public. I just thought I'd touch on that because it's specific to veterans. So this is a very cool web page or web map that I found that's published by the City of Flagstaff, where they essentially show you where in town they offer these different services. So for instance, this page shows emergency housing services. And there on the left, it has legend with all the different names of the services. And then you can see on the map where all the different services are located. And then if you did want to go to that web page, you could zoom in, zoom out, you click on each one, view the name, and this is that next tab. This is affordable housing. It looks like the number there is cut off. It was 1,800 units available. Same thing. Names on the left and symbols in the middle and on the right. This is the homeownership assistance by neighborhood. My understanding is this is the assistance currently being distributed, or I'm sorry, since 1999 distributed by neighborhood. And this is the affordable housing map. There are 158 units available. And same deal. On this extent, you can't really see all the different ones, but if anyone needs that URL, I can drop it in the chat or go back to that slide. Online, you're able to completely manipulate it and zoom into wherever you want, click wherever you want, and so on. So here are the references used throughout this presentation. Does anybody have any questions right now? Does anyone want me to go back to a specific slide or anything, or have anything to share? Oh, Valerie, I see your hand is up. Valeria.
Hello. Excuse me. Hello. My name is Valeria Chase, and I really want to thank you for all the resources and research that you've been doing for for veterans. I am a veteran myself, U.S. Army, and I also wanted to share that I'm the program manager for off-campus life and the neighborhood liaison. It's a joint position between NAU and the city of Flagstaff. And I do have an off-campus life website, and I'd be interested in linking the resources that you have on the military and veteran services website off of mine. On the website, I can create a link that says, it's living in Flagstaff, and then create on the drop-down menu, I could put veterans on there and link it to your website, so that all the information can also be accessible from there.
That would be amazing.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you. I'm glad you like that idea. I also have, I'd be happy to meet with you, also to share some resources that I think might be helpful, especially in regards to the walkability, bikeability scores of housing in Flagstaff as well. It's this website called Rent Lab, and it's also linked to my off-campus living page. But we can, somehow take a look at it to see how it might be useful to you. I want to put myself out there available to see, to attend orientations, office hours, help you do outreach in advance as well. And yeah, so however we can connect or work
Yeah.
together, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. That sounds awesome. I dropped my email in the chat. If you
Mhm.
if you could drop it in there, or if you want to just direct message it to me, I'll contact you there.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much.
And it looks like Lori asked if you could share your information with everyone.
Absolutely. I will, Lori. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or a slide that you wanted to see again? I can go back to a more interesting slide while we chat.
I just wanted to add that like I currently just went through like the housing search and I've been in Flagstaff for 6 years. Like I'm well aware of the situation and even
Uh-huh.
that was super difficult. So like I just can't imagine what incoming vets who have no idea um what the reality is like here.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I definitely empathize with them because people just don't know. And I I got out I got out 2 months before I started at NAU. And so obviously it was pretty last minute. Got lucky, but a lot of people don't. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Kate. Do you mind sharing how long you were looking before you found a good opportunity?
Oh gosh, I was like looking casually and like super seriously for probably at least a month or two. Um, and then we really just got lucky with one of the houses we looked at. So,
I'm good to hear. Is there anyone else that wants to share their experience trying to find housing in Flagstaff, whether you're a veteran or not? It's totally relevant.
This is Cece. I'm not a veteran and I don't live in Flagstaff, but I'm a parent of someone who lives on campus and I'm stressed out because he hasn't selected. You know, he's one of those returning students who is just waiting to see what's available living on campus next semester. So keep us in your prayers.
Oh yes, I will. I will. And then Jordan, did you have something?
Yeah, so like I just started graduate school here. I work full time on campus. I'm also a veteran. It's extremely difficult. I started looking for housing in March, and I actually didn't close on a place until about a week before the start of the semester. So
Wow.
this has been like really helpful, Thomas, just so I can share these resources because I meet with a lot of freshman students as well
Yeah.
as an advisor. So this is very helpful too, so I can help, talk to them, be like, hey, this is the reality. Here's some resources for you so we can get you situated. So I appreciate you sharing all this with us.
No problem. I'm glad you shared that. It's good to know that you're going to be distributing those resources further and helping people out with it. Jordan, do you mind me asking what graduate program you're in?
I am in the history program here for arts and letters.
Awesome. Awesome. In fall, I just started the MS program for geography.
Oh, nice, nice. How do you like it?
It's good. I get to make maps like this. Cool. Thank you. Did anyone else have something to share?
Hi, my name is Suhe Ramos. I'm with the Academic Success Centers. I wanted to, I guess, just share quickly or kind of like a question. Are the majority of veterans looking for rental opportunities or are they, but also I know that there are some older veterans with families, or are they more looking for like home ownership opportunities?
Great question. And yes, the average age of veterans at NEU is over 30. I would need to look again to see exactly, but it's in the 30s. And yes, some of them are looking to buy, but due to kind of the urgency of the situation, like the timeline, a lot of times they'll end up at least renting for a time and then finding the place and then buying. So a lot of, at least from the veterans I've worked with who have bought property or houses in Flagstaff, first of all, it's like the vast minority, just because most of the people coming to NAU aren't really in that place, or they're coming to Flagstaff to go to school. But the few that have, I believe they have also rented. So I think it's primarily finding good rentals.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thomas, this is Lori. I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm out here in Tuba City and I travel the reservation and also go out to like Holbrook, Winslow, Sholo, St. John's area Page. What and where would you suggest looking to help the veterans out here look for housing?
Yeah, so do you mean veterans that live out there and want to commute to Flagstaff, or
I guess it could kind of go both ways. The program I work with is called Educational Opportunity Centers, and we assist anybody that's 19 years and older seeking to continue or begin their post-secondary education.
Oh, great. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and that's any school of their choice, not of our choosing.
School of their choice. So you essentially help them attend the follow-on school that they choose.
Yes, any school they're thinking about. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that. Man, I need to do more research on the Tuba City area and finding resources out there.
Okay.
I know, if you know Brandon Whiterock, he
Yes,
works
I
with our
do.
department.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm definitely gonna I'm gonna sit down with him. I know he's more familiar with that area.
Okay.
And so that's an amazing question. And that wasn't even on my radar really until you just asked that question.
Yeah, because we have we have veterans that come back too, and they're seeking education, but it's just a matter of where they can go to either find housing or what the closest, community college is going to be to them, and if they're willing to drive back and forth, or if there is going to be housing that's available for them in those locations they, decide to go to, like I'm saying, Page, or, somebody is going to Kienta, something like that.
Yeah, and that's definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue. We've had even past faculty with our department who have been commuting from
Yes.
the reservation and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, there's a difficulty there. There's not the adequate, there's not local resources really, it feels like, in that area particularly.
Yes.
That I'm currently aware of. So thank you for asking that question. I don't have a great answer right now, but I'm gonna be working on that in the future.
Okay, maybe I'll reach out to Brandon too and see what kind of suggestions he may have.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. You do that as well,
Okay.
if you would like to.
Thank you.
Well, I'll ask him.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Was there any other questions?
I don't see anything else in the chat.
Great. Well, thank you so much for attending. It was great to hear from so many of you, and I hope this was helpful. I hope you can relay some useful information to someone who needs it. And if you have anything else for me, Feel free to shoot me an email. My email is in the chat. And yeah, just let me know if you have anything to add to this conversation or if you have any questions.